Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to second day of event. And really, today is the real World Environment Day, the 5th June. We had a pre World Environment Day, and I think most of you must have been busy in participating or just watching several events all over the day. In fact, for me, it was a very momentous, very busy day, starting from 9 a.m. in the morning, addressing a few central universities. And there was another with the governor of Uttarakhand, and then with the NABARD, and finally with the Vikram Sarabhai centenary celebration event. So friends, this was very, very momentous, the day, and I hope we all will have a good time today. To briefly, before I go further, proceed further, may I request Mr. Pradeep Burman, Chairman, Mobius Foundation, to preside over, and he will. He has been an inspiration and the moving spirit behind this whole arrangement with this whole event. We have been discussing for almost a month about having this event along with the colleagues in Climate Reality Project. Uh, I think Mr. Berman needs no introduction. He has devoted himself for the cause of environment and sustainability. I think those who have seen him during the International Conference on Sustainability Education in September, you could see his activism, his enthusiasm, and all the support to such events. So we welcome you, sir, Mr. Berman, and with your kind permission, let me start the proceedings of the day.
Please, thank you. Please go ahead.
Yeah. In fact, very briefly, let me start with a very quick recap of yesterday's proceedings. What happened? We had a very, very exciting session yesterday. It was inaugurated formally by uh, Mr. Atul Bagai, the director of the United Nations Environment Program India office. Mr. Bagai, in fact, he mentioned about the role that biodiversity plays in our lives and also about the initiatives that UNEP is taking in the field of education, particularly his initiatives of turning the tide for the ocean education program about the ocean litter. The other one that he has launched today was on the Diksha platform of the Union Ministry of Human Resources Development, and that is again Earth School program. He spoke about it. This was followed by the keynote speaker, Mr. Kartikeya Sarabhai, and who in fact gave a brief on the sustainability movement that is happening, particularly environment education and sustainability, and his involvement with the DESD the whole decade, and later on the Global Action Program, the GAP, and now the Global Framework for ESD. He also mentioned about the new normals, the teaching and learning that is happening in this COVID situation, and gave certain examples like his own example, looking beyond the windows to the birds, to the nature, to the greeneries, and how we all are very much connected with the nature uh, uh, all the way, and which is very much existential to our well-being. Uh, After Mr. Sarabhai, it was Dr. Pramod Sharma, the senior director at the Foundation for Environment Education, FEEE. He mentioned about the programs that particularly how his organization is dealing with the COVID-19 situation with around 60,000 school network globally. And he mentioned about the young reporters for environment. They are, I think that's very exciting reports they are writing, staying at home. It's a hashtag YARE stays home, YARE stays home, that campaign they have launched, and writing using lot of online interactive tools. This was followed by Miss Seema Bali, and she is from a school in Dwarka, and she mentioned about the arrangements, particularly devices and connectivity arrangements that teachers and students they have done cooperatively into her school. And she mentioned about experiential learning, which is happening even online, creating nature, and also how her school is getting green accreditation, uh, and many other SOPs that she has devised for the school openings and the education happening there. And this was followed by a principal from Sri Lankan school, and Sumedha. She mentioned about what is happening, in fact, in the sustainability area in Sri Lankan schools and her experience of, because Sri Lanka gave a lot of emphasis post-conflict sustainability education, where I was also personally, Huma, Masood from UNESCO, she knows that we were very closely working with Sri Lankan schools, and it was a very interesting insight from a school from Sri Lanka. And after that, the Principals Conclave was held, and Principals Mr. Aditya Pundir, the country director of Climate Reality Project, he took over, and he in fact facilitated the 10 parallel sessions with the principals on 4 thematic areas. And today I'm not going to go into that detail because Mr. Ashok Pandey, who is the chairperson of Council of GCED, he will be taking over now to present the proceedings of those breakout sessions. Mr. Pandey's his professional career as an educator and a school leader has spanned over 3 decades. He is currently the director of Ahelcon Group of Schools. Earlier, for almost over 2 decades, he has served as the principal of Ahelcon International School, ranked among the best in India. Mr. Ashok is an active partner to the UN's Act for SDGs campaign and has been at the forefront of fostering United Nations SDGs in various schools across India through his initiative SDGs for Q Education. So I invite you, Mr. Pandey, to give a brief of the breakaway groups. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Bhooj, for your very kind introduction, sir. I'm grateful to you. You have been a source of inspiration to all of us. Thank you, Mr. Burman, Humaji, Ms. Donna. I can share my screen, Bhavesh, and how much time I have, Bhavesh?
10 minutes.
As quick as
10 minutes, okay, fine.
Yeah.
Fine, no problem.
A quick recap.
Yeah. With your permission, Chair, Mr. Burman and Dr. Bhooj, yesterday we had this fantastic breakout session. It gave us the feeling that we are in 10 different rooms in a 5-star hotel in Delhi. and we deliberated around the themes of COVID and post-COVID, how it is going to impact education, what is the way forward, and how it is troubling us in so many ways. And after the discussions, each group gave their inputs, and I have the privilege to present before this gathering. Of course, this COVID was unprecedented. It has put us in a radically new age. It gave us a very little window of opportunity to prepare and to come out with any long-term solutions. But I want to put it on record before this August gathering. The teachers, not only of India, but all over the world, with whatever resources they had, they combined those resources with their determination, with their commitment, with their empathy, with their love and compassion for the children. And they came out with many creative solutions to reach the children in all the three zones of accessibility, with internet, limited internet, and no internet. Of course, when 1.7 billion children with extreme diversities are sitting at home, it was not possible to reach out to each one of them. Some of them, of course, did not have access, but the Indian experience suggests that all the state governments with their sources, whether through TV or through voiceover, through SMS, WhatsApp, podcast, radio, they tried their best to reach out to these children. However, the problems remain the same, and the principals, we deliberated about the enormity of the problem. 90% of the students, did not go to their campuses, and the responsibility fell on the teachers. While sitting at home, they were missing schools, they're missing their teachers, they're missing their fun, socialization, socio-emotional learning, sports, and therefore it was a missing from both sides, teachers and students. And therefore, this very difficult challenge as to how to reach out to these children, how to involve the parents, and how to foster this relationship in a way that cognitive domain is fine, but how to reach out to them socio and emotionally, and how to ensure their well-being, how to take them out of their anxiety and fear and trauma, and to ensure that they have some connectivity with their children. Now that we have done almost 2 months and a lot of talks around the world that schools will reopen, some countries have reopened and reclosed due to uncertain nature of the present pandemic. And therefore, currently we are talking about a hybrid education, which will be a combination of both in-person and online education. And that will require a lot of blending. It will require a blending of talent and resources. It will require a blending of a school and parents fostering the relationship. It will require a blending of cognitive domain and socio-emotional domain. It will require a blending of synchronous and asynchronous mode of studies. But how to build that infrastructure and how that infrastructure will come at what scale and how soon, that remains a challenge which we want to put before the policy makers and the people responsible to provide these facilities. Because if we do not have internet, if we do not have devices, even if those who have the internet and devices, a large number of families, the children have competed within the family for bandwidth, they have competed for devices, they have competed for quieter place to sit in the house. So it is not an ordinary situation. It is an unprecedented situation, and we all have to find means and ways to come out of it. One group suggested, can we think of a $100 laptop with all the facilities? And one thing which was mentioned yesterday by the distinguished speakers, and as an educator, it did put me to some shame and introspection, and so did it to the other principals. We have talked about SDGs for a very long time. These 17 goals, 6 of them go for people, 5 of them go for planet, 4 of them go for prosperity, and 1 each for peace and partnership. We have given a lot of figures and statistics to suggest that we have achieved a lot in SDG 4 in accessing education and lifelong learning, but why it has not translated into a lot of respect for the environment, and why the environment continues to suffer the disrespect that we see. And therefore, one group very passionately discussed that we have to present the case studies and role models of green schools, and how a blending between the human beings and nature can be reinvented and redesigned, so that next opportunity we do not have to face the same problem. And therefore, in conclusion, the groups felt that the teacher-student connectivity, once they come back, the social distancing, the health issues, all of them have to be taken care of. Now, the skill building will become a new initiative 10 years, 15 years down the line in uncertain period. What skills will gain prominence, and how we can prepare our children for those skills as on today? What are the initiatives of the open source learning, initiative of NGOs, initiative of Doordarshan, Bharat Connect initiative, and together, all of us have to come and produce a new design of learning, a new design of commitment to SDGs, and a new design of fostering a beautiful relationship between the human and diversity. I think that is the essence of yesterday's deliberation, and I'm absolutely delighted in presenting it before this August gathering with a very optimistic, positive note that let us all be very confident, let us all be very optimistic. This period will also pass, and all such crisis situations have also been opportunities to innovate and transform, to come back to nature, to be reflective. And I'm sure this pandemic will also prove the same for the human beings. Thank you very much. Over to you, Dr. Bhooj.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pandey. I think you very skillfully rather went through this. Must have been 10 groups, must have been huge exercise, and I think this will be shared. We will just have a look at the whole material, and will improve it and share with all the participants, maybe on our website, that both Climate Reality and Mobius website this will be put, and so that everybody
Thank
can
you, sir.
contribute further to these workout groups. Basically, all those 4 questions, they were addressed very nicely by all the groups, and I thank all the group leaders, coordinators, and facilitators for making this happen. Very succinct recommendations. Now I move over to Dr. Huma Masood. She is my former colleague in the UNESCO, and I request her to do the honor of formally opening this technical session of today's program. Dr. Huma Masood, to introduce, in fact, we know each other, but to formally introduce, I would like to just mention a very few points here. She is a PhD and MPhil in regional development, applied social sciences, with research on educational and occupational paradigms and social and economic policies for women in India, from Premier Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi, India. So that is another connection with her, because the JNU, we both belong to the same institution. The other important, she is looking after gender and education in emergency at UNESCO. She is a focal point for the sector, the education sector, and the office. Her focus largely in the education sector is SDG 4 and its 10 target areas and expected results. However, she has been very actively involved in cross-cutting themes like gender, youth, ICTs, ESD, GCED, and many others like vulnerable groups like persons with disabilities. During her brief stint at Rajiv Gandhi Foundation, Indian Council for Child Welfare and Canadian SIDA, she influenced through research, targeted projects and programs, advocacy and awareness campaigns, meaningful social policies, reforms and safeguards, generated knowledge on international protocols and conventions specific to gender, child rights, inclusion, poverty, so many uh, achievements to her credit. In fact, we worked very closely, particularly on the ESD during my stay in UNESCO. And last month only, she invited me to participate in a gender and STEM webinar that was very, very useful because I was a bit surprised in a gender workshop, a male delivering the keynote address. But after attending this so skillfully, she has rather managed the program. She has developed the program. The whole webinar was so beautifully done. So thank you, Huma, and we welcome you here. And over to you to give your opening speech.
Thank you, Rambuji. I take this opportunity to thank Team Mobis Foundation and all partners, Center for Environment Education, CEE, Foundation for Environment Education, FEE, Z, UNEP, for this first forum and through a webinar for the Principals Conclave on the theme, Sustainability Education in COVID Era. As per today's theme, we are supposed to address collectively the implications of COVID-19 on education for sustainable development. Friends, since today's World Environment Day, and as I speak to you, I'm reminded of a beautiful phrase I read in the book called Relic Guilt by Edward Cox, which said, and I quote, "But there was a place, a fabled haven that all the labyrinth's denizens wondered about, dreamt of reaching far beyond the mists. In the deepest region of the maze, there was a doorway that led to a paradise named Mother Earth." However, the headlines of one of the articles today I read is also quite evoking in the context of Mother Earth. It says, and I quote, "We are literally consuming the Mother Earth that sustains us." Furthermore, and lately in the context of COVID-19 pandemic, we find our lives halted. And this is for people across the globe. It has also led to the creation and implementation of global policies featuring quarantines, social and physical distancing, travel restrictions, cancellation of schools and universities, and enhanced work from home policies for offices. The only positive externality of the COVID-19 pandemic, I would say, is its effect on the environment. With the pause on everyday life and the pollution, including noise pollution, the air and water quality around has improved drastically. On an average, there's reduction in particulate matter concentration over certain parts of India and the Indo-Gangetic Basin as much as 75%. You may have noticed that with the impact has occurred, you may have noticed that with the sudden closure of all public and private destinations, an obvious and immediate impact had occurred on our biodiversity and climate. In the Indian context, social media and news agencies have been filled with picture showcasing the before and after pictures of many landmark areas in India in regards to the air quality. Whereas before the lockdown, gray, polluted skies made it difficult to spot India Gate clearly. The pictures during lockdown showcase it standing tall with bright blue skies. This has forced us to question how low human activity has had such a large and immediate impact on the dying planet. The question therefore now remains on how to continue with this good wave. For UNESCO, education is the key to spread awareness on the issues of climate change in order to transform the world we live in. To address the serious issues of climate change, biodiversity, and loss of habitat, a transformative and holistic education with the focus on sustainability is to be taught to the future generations. However, such a transformation of the education system during and after COVID-19 to include environmental sustainability requires a pedagogical revolution. This could be accompanied by mainstreaming environmental sustainability into the curriculum and engaging students at every step. A multi-pronged strategy bringing together educators, schools, ministries, environmental NGOs, and students to ensure the education system is preparing students for the imminent future could also be the way. We know quality teaching is a prerequisite to quality education. To facilitate this goal of providing quality education which covers sustainability issues, the pivotal role of teachers in bridging gaps in education needs to be highlighted. Once teachers are trained in the topic, they can include in their lessons and make students more aware of the current challenges facing the environment. Teachers should also be skilled in teaching students basic life skills that have a positive impact on the environment. This includes basic teaching such as saving water, electricity, waste management, science and geography lessons that can now also include information on climate change to raise awareness. The current model of online teaching may also be quite an effective way for teachers to mainstream the topics of sustainability in students, as they can now share the multiple excellent visual media pieces made on climate change and the environment, such as documentaries, short videos, movies, etc., to raise awareness amongst the students. However, in a country diverse as India, the on-ground realization of socioeconomic background needs to be taken into consideration seriously, including vulnerabilities like the gender, disabilities, migrants, internally displaced. Before making online learning the answers for, we have to look into all these aspects of inclusiveness. The COVID-19 pandemic has alienated many students and increased the dropout rate as online education is inaccessible for many. Alternative methods to online learning should be identified for students who cannot access online tools. This may include broadcasting their lessons on televisions or radios, allowing schools to operate in these areas with social distancing, in effect, dropping off pre-recorded lessons plans in widely distributed radio phones or any other ICT mechanism, and full considerations for children with disabilities must be. In schools and campuses, students should be allowed to form clubs and groups within themselves, centering around raising awareness. Routines such as installing recycling bins, putting up signs about conserving watering areas in the field of environment science and climate change to students, forcing them to engage and understand the issues at a deeper level. Some practices students and teachers adopted during the lockdown must also continue, such as students who are able to and must be allowed to bring laptops and tablets to schools to take notes. Teachers should also accept online copies of essays and projects to conserve paper instead of circulars and reading materials to be printed in masses to be distributed among students. Schools can start sending such materials to students and parents' email IDs. Furthermore, extra classes and non-academic related meetings, including parent-teachers meetings, can also occur online. In terms of everyday life, this is a time for students to also consider their choices. Is better to carpool or take the buses to school rather than be dropped off in a singular vehicle. The lifestyle forced during the lockdown can also be continued afterwards for a lower impact on the environment. This includes eliminating or drastically reducing one's participation in the purchase of fast fashion materials, one of the largest contributors to climate change, reducing the frequency with which clothes were laundered, minimizing the consumption of all materials and non-essential things, which we were forced to do currently due to the lack of their availability. To end my opening remarks, I would say that on the brighter side, the pandemic has forced many changes and has brought the matter of environment, sustainability, and climate change to the forefront. This crisis can be viewed as an opportunity to involve more students and teachers to initiate changes in their practices, ideology, and behavior by promoting more sustainable ways of living and addressing more ways of making schools and campuses green. Let us commit ourselves with all tiny acts of kindness towards saving our Mother Earth, our planet. We urgently need to minimize our carbon footprint and promulgate environment-friendly and cost-effective technologies, learn to live and synchronize with nature, and above all, respect, give adequate space, and appreciate the need to protect habitat of other denizens of Mother Earth. Word of caution. It is true that the industrial model that invaded the habitats of other species has no respect for the health of plants and animals, and that the emergencies we see today are rooted in an idea of limitless growth and limitless greed. This is our last and only chance. We better do our bit, lest we regret forever. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Huma. I think it was excellent opening introductory remark to set the tone of today's webinar. I think we all agree uh, about mainstreaming sustainability and climate change into the new normals, the behavioral change that you mentioned about. I think you very much nailed on some of these shortcomings or some of the difficulties that both teachers and students are facing, particularly the aspect of inclusion. You mentioned about the persons with disabilities, but I think there are a lot of marginalized communities, those living in the rural areas, those who do not have access to devices, and also very uh, erratic connectivity or no connectivity at all. So all these aspects, I think you gave certain suggestions which need to be taken care. I think government's Diksha platform and all other online platforms, even the Doordarshan which is going to air, so that might take in India particularly to some extent these concerns. But thank you so much for providing a kind of tone and tenor to this whole further discussions. So you please stay on because we will have further, and at the end I think I would ask all the viewers to keep ready with their questions also. There will be a few questions at the very end. So after that, let us move over to Dr. Donna Goodman. I think those who have attended ICSC in September, we all know her, her enthusiasm, the way she spearheaded uh, many sessions during the ICSC. We are very happy to have you, Donna, here. And I think you have been a champion of rights and participation of child uh, and people in the environment sector for more than 25 years. Your international development work has been widely published by UN partners including UNICEF, UNEP, WHO and others. In the private sector, your work has been published by McGraw-Hill, Turner Broadcasting for Cartoon Network and MTV through production of a documentary special program about water featuring Jazz-Ed. So many contributions that you have been making, and now I think we are very keen to listen you in this new normal, which is post-COVID, or we are still in the midst of the COVID, how this teaching learning is going to happen. We would be very happy to listen to your insight into the whole issue. So welcome, Donna, and over to you. You unmute your...
Oh, I'm muted?
Yes, yes, now we can hear you.
Is my PowerPoint loaded in? I have a
presentation. You want to present yourself, screen share, or shall we do it from here?
Yes, I sent it a couple of days ago so that they could do it from there. Or shall
Okay.
So,
Avesh?
Yeah, we can do that.
You have the presentation.
I have it here too.
Okay.
It's not technically that. There we go. Okay. So first, I guess I was muted, but I wanted to thank you all so much for this opportunity to be with you today. And it's so good to see your faces of old and new friends. And thank you to Mobius, to Dr. Ram and Mr. Berman and UNESCO, to Huma in the Climate Reality Project. And thanks to all of you. It's my pleasure to be here. I wasn't involved yesterday in the webinar, but I was so happy to hear the debrief and also Huma's presentation, because I think we're very much along the same line. You'll see I've tried to simplify, but even in the outcomes from yesterday with the rainbow, I am also following that theme. So some forces are guiding us. So essentially, I looked at some of the things you looked at yesterday, but what is it? It's a simple way to create a guidance for students, to teachers, parents everywhere to learn and live in a sustainable way. And when is now? The time is now, as we move toward the end of this disruption of life as it was by COVID-19 and some extreme weather, and to look at things in a different way. I think it really highlighted, we all know that it really highlighted some of our key shortcomings as humans on this planet. So why is to create a sustainable future on Earth, and where is with every primary and secondary school across the globe. I think our moment of opportunity is so incredibly special, which has never maybe presented itself in the industrial age, is that students, children in every country of the world are out of school, every country. And parents, even those that are called back to work, like here in the US, many of them, they're still home teaching their children. So it's really such a time for change, and who is all of us, globally, nationally, subnationally, educators, parents, youth facilitators, and more. So can I, okay, so actually this is an illustration from my book, Eco Masters, which is, I'll tell you a little more about later, but it all starts with girls imagining a new future for all of us. And this is an illustration from the book, which starts them all off into this adventure. So how do we do it? Just as you've started to do here, we're imagining, listening, learning, starting to research, write, innovate. And through these, it's amazing, this Zoom technology that we didn't have even a year or two ago. It's all in good time. And Google document consultations with development partners. I've been working on, different groups with different Google document projects that we can all work together globally. So, and these are, the bits coming together, as you were mentioning in the other presentations. So I've sort of structured the idea, this is just one way of looking at the change that we need to have in curriculum around the world. So starting with the very basics of reading and writing, to physical fitness, no matter where we are, no matter what our connectivity is, we can be learning outside and socializing. And in the early part of this year, I've been working on a paper on values-based education, even before the COVID. And what I have found in talking to children that are working in values-based education is that you don't even have to ask them about the environment. They just come and tell you, ask, what do I like about school? They say, we're planting trees, and on Sundays we go and chant to the trees. Or, we have our vegetable garden that we take care of every day. And then, of course, the mathematics and science with contextual learning. And I'm going to go through each one of these, so I'll try to be a little bit quick. Green jobs, and so forth. So starting with reading and writing, the basics at home or in groups. And I heard some of you talking about the $100 laptops, or providing books to families that are offline, and learning not just about our own alphabets, but alphabets of the world, global literature, not just the literature of our own culture, and creative writing. Physical fitness is so important, especially here in the US, they're talking about it all the time now, about the fact that the country is overweight and very anxious. And so the social interaction that most people are having now is out of doors. So if that, and in many schools, we have, because of budget cuts, we have cut out physical fitness, but it is a way to reduce anxiety and strengthen our bodies. Human values. So here we have the respect for all forms of life, planetary stewardship, empathy and love, understanding for self and others. I wrote many, many years ago, even before I came to UNICEF, maybe in the late 90s, that someone who loves their mother will not throw pollution because they see their Mother Earth as well. So the respect and stewardship, and I'm learning that more and more with the values-based education, it comes organically. So then we can, math and science. So when I started out my career, I was teaching science to young children in fun and stimulating way. I think we've so gone away from that. The idea of thinking, making hypotheses and experimenting, and the mathematics, looking at it within the context of our lives. I think the time of learning just for the sake of learning and pouring knowledge into someone, we know it doesn't work in the testing the way it is. So, but we want our children, we want everyone to learn all of the basics, but in ways that they can use it to contribute to a better world. So green jobs, everybody talks about green jobs, but it can start very young. When I was in UNICEF, we started these, so for instance, I'd visit a school and they had solar panels on the school, and the kids would say, we have this solar energy, we have these trees outside. What does this have to do with what you're learning in science? What does it have to do with what you're learning about photosynthesis? Nobody knew. There's such a disconnect between what happens outside and in our facilities to what we're learning. So starting from a very young age of understanding why and how we do these things will automatically bring this about. Disaster risk reduction, which most of you have talked about too, looking at school and community mapping. It's been raining here in Florida for 5 days. Like, everything is inundated. You know, soon people will have to move. And how do we filter? The water is really terrible. How do we filter and prepare water for safe drinking everywhere, upstream, downstream, on the ocean, etc. Learning from the start, going back to where I started with reading, that we are all in one world. I think the time for, you know, we need local cultural learning, but we also need to really understand from a young age that we're part of one world. And that means sustainable consumption, environmental health, climate change, of course, culture and language, and the interconnection of waterways, which is something that I've worked on like almost my entire adult life. Every river, every aquifer, they don't have national boundaries. They just flow from one place to the other. And lastly, the global network. There's approximately 2.2 billion children under the age of 18 on Earth today. So as they learn, you know, whether it's these $100 laptops or more advanced learning of coding and understanding how their devices work, setting up school clubs, and then the communication using digital media to share and learn. Like in Earthchild Institute, we've had a global action classroom for many years where you have, we pair them by the same language. So for instance, we'll have a school in Brazil talking to a school in Mozambique because they're both in Portuguese, or, English language schools. So they learn about each other and what their projects are doing. So this worked, that worked, why didn't it work? So forth. So we can go to, so this is the segue. Most of my career, I have been working on 100 schools there, 1,000 schools there, 5 schools. And I have just, for myself, I've decided that fiction might be a way to, before COVID especially, but now a way to reach many more thousands, millions, hundreds of thousands of children so that they can create their own world. And the way I'm doing that is my book that's coming out at Christmas time, Eco Masters, A Planet in Peril. And it's about girls leading through water power, and they travel the world through the water, and they join forces. They have to get to an invisible island in the Amazon to learn how to use their individual unique gifts for a sustainable future for all. And what I found really interesting, the book isn't even out yet, but I found that people are interested in regional versions. So for instance, this one starts in New York and also includes Laos and India and Africa and Brazil. But in China, they wanted one that was only China, that starts in Shanghai and goes to Tibet and Hong Kong and Singapore. And the hidden island is in Shangri-La. And we've been talking about a South Asia version as well. So I've already really explained this. So the idea of the Eco Masters is global training centers. The books, not just for the sake of the superhero adventure stories, but that these kids learn that they all have individual gifts, and there will be training centers on islands on each continent around the world for not just children, but parents and teachers on alternating weeks. So that's it. That's a little bit of a vision, hopefully that brings together some of what I've been hearing all of you talking about. So thank you so much, and my honor and pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much, Donna. I think we all have gained so much from what you just presented, imagining a new future. And you rightly mentioned about online Zoom and Google Docs, which are very effective tools, but there are many more. These online coming together is becoming very, very easy nowadays. The other aspect that you mentioned about the values-based education, in fact, you are doing, I think, a publication on this, and I am also supposed to contribute to it.
Yes,
I'm
that's right.
very late. I think I will do something. The one thing that I would like to highlight here, the aspect of physical fitness that you mentioned. In fact, when you are locked down in the closed environment, glued to the television or the computer or the mobile screens, that places a lot of huge stress and anxiety. And that is where I think coming closer to nature is so important. I just read a piece which recently was published in Journal of Restoration Ecology, and where researchers from University of Adelaide and many others, around 20 researchers, they found that biodiverse urban green spaces boost children's immunity and make them more uh, happy and reduce stress and anxiety. This is a very, very important study, the scientific study which has just come, that the biodiverse environment, they have certain kind of microbes. Of course, we know the microbe, this COVID, how dangerous it is, but there are soil microbes. When children get in, they soil their hands, they get in touch with those, then their stress level and anxiety level, these all get drastically reduced. This is very important piece which you also highlighted about the fitness thing. Thank you so much, and let us now move to Ms. Gayatri Raghava. She is a global leader in environmental education and an advisor to the Global Environment Education Partnership, GEEP. She exemplifies the very best in her field through her leadership, passion, as well as inspiration she provides to others. She has worked to raise the profile of environment education in Abu Dhabi, where she worked for many years. And she also developed MOUs with many environment education organizations such as NAE, CAAE, and also from other parts of the world. She has developed several resource materials, and currently she is helping UNEP uh, in several projects, the Tide Turner and the Earth School, to mention, which yesterday Mr. Atul Bagai mentioned. So she was very busy today. In fact, she has just joined us, and I am without Gayatri, without making you any rest, taking you any rest. I would request you to take over and say a few words about your experiences on this sustainability education.
Thank you, Mr. Ramboj. If you will just give me 1 minute, because I think my computer is also running out of battery. I've not got up from the seat since morning, and I think there's a little loose connection that I did not observe. So just give me a second while you talk, while I connect it. Yeah?
So Gayatri and we know each other for many, many years. When she was bubbling with energy in Abu Dhabi. She used to hop from one conference to the other with lot of innovative ideas, ventures, and she is back in India, and I think with many new programs and initiatives. She coordinated a session in ICSC, particularly that was how higher education institutions could be linked with the sustainability and also at the grassroots level, that is the school education. So that was a very insightful session during the ICSC. So she has.
One second. I'm just coming in. I'm just plugging my stuff separately because I've just finished one webinar and I did not notice that the battery was, it had all got disconnected and then I'm running out of battery. Just give me, yes, it's almost on now and I am ready. Yeah.
No problem. Meanwhile, there are very positive comments.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Can you hear me?
Go ahead.
Good. Good evening to all of you. And if I'm looking a bit jaded and feeling a bit jaded, it's because I haven't gotten out from the seat since morning. We've had big launches from UNEP in the morning and we had a huge program. And I just 5 minutes back, I got off. We launched a UNEP first faith-based organization strategy, Faith for Earth strategy. So I have just come out of it. So thank you, Mr. Bhooj, for inviting me. And I hope I do justice to what you've invited me for, because I couldn't even put my, totally, can I share my screen here? I'm just sharing my screen. Yes, so can you see my screen?
Yes.
Great. So I was asked by Bhooj, what do I speak on? Because I couldn't even see your mail since morning because of these programs at UNEP. We are very short team members in UNEP, and this is a very big day for us. So we were all running in all directions and didn't get much sleep. We were working very, very hard. So I was thinking, what should I talk? Because Mr. Bhooj said you talk about your experience of what we did in what we are doing with UNEP right now with students. But when I looked at your concept note, I thought if I have the permission from you to say a little bit of things which cross my mind. So do I have your permission? I don't have a very clear thing. Yeah, thank you. So the first, you had written 4 big themes. The first one was how can sustainability issues such as biodiversity, climate change, environment protection be mainstreamed into curriculum and practical actions in schools and campuses. So when I looked at it, I started wondering what constitutes a good educational program. One of the things that I have been in the field of environment education for a long, long time. And we do a lot of things. Sometimes we don't even have the time. We're all like running all the time. We don't even stop and think back on what we did. Do we have time to reflect? Can we think back? What constitutes a good environment education program? If I do one program on water and a nice campaign on water, is that sufficient? Do I need to do more? How do I organize my environment education activity in my school or campuses? So usually what happens, in my opinion, is that we take whatever is trending. So today, if water is the main issue that we're all talking about, we immediately embark on doing something on water. And then suddenly somebody comes up and then starts talking about climate change, we go into climate change. But we do not think that we need to develop a kind of a holistic approach. We always, in my opinion, most of the schools, and this is not for all, because there have been some fabulous programs as well, but most of the environment education programs, in my opinion, go in a piecemeal manner. And that is, I feel, one of the things that's pulling us down. So we really need to have a more holistic program where we are able to connect all the story together. Because I used to keep telling my students and my teachers, if when they used to learn about water, for example, they would, in one class, in one subject, they would learn about treatment of water. In another class, they would learn about distribution of water. But where do you put the story of water together in your mind? We don't. So we need to develop our mind. We needed to have a more holistic program whenever we do our environment education program. And as far if we don't deliver concrete deliverables on ground, then we don't even have people supporting us, whether be it government or any other body that is funding us. But some of the very good examples of some of the holistic initiatives that have gone on are your eco schools, which I'm sure you would have talked a great deal about yesterday or maybe today. And sustainable schools is the project that I used to do. I mean, fashioned after sustainable schools are everywhere. You have a sustainable schools program in UK, you have a sustainable schools program in Australia. You also had a sustainable schools program in UAE, where I was working for a long time, where we try to look at not one, but look into biodiversity, climate change, everything in one. So we looked at all components in one and took our school or took our campuses as our laboratory. And then we looked from there and then extended outward to the community and tried to connect all the parameters from the school example, creating an example in the school and taking it forward. So I feel, I mean, I'm not saying that's the best, but I felt it brought about a change in the mindset of people and even in the government, because at the end of the day, I was working with the government and the government used to say, all of us are environment educators and we know that funding and support for environment education is very hard. It's really, really hard to get. But when we do get our funders and our sources of people who partners with us, always come back and say, okay, so did you do this painting program? Did you do this program? So what did it actually end up in? So until and unless we are going to deliver concrete deliverables, even from schools, when we say the schools together reduced water by so much, carbon by so much, they've got this school gardens, they've done this biodiversity survey in their schools and then in the neighborhood areas, till we don't come up with very concrete change and deliverables, then we do have a problem, because the funders after a point of time lose time and education takes a long time. And so people then stop believing in us. And so that is one of the things that I learned, that until unless we deliver very concrete changes, which they can write in their report, which we can also write in their report, and which has numbers, that makes a lot of difference. So I feel eco schools and sustainable schools, programs such as these, I'm sure there are many more, they are far more holistic. So I'm sure they are examples where things have been mainstreamed into curriculum as well and practices in the school as well. So the second thing that I looked at is, how can the new normal of COVID-19 be used to address environmental challenges and in making campuses green, which educates to protect environment and impact health benefits? What I feel is, there is a lot of talk. In fact, for the past 2 months, we've just been talking COVID-19, impact of COVID-19 on X, impact of COVID-19 on Y. We've been examining that. But sometimes when we come to education, I feel we need to take a little calibrated approach. What has happened just before I came into the seminar, we had that other webinar where people were saying, oh, the whole, the birds were chirping outside, the river became clean. That is all great. But if and they were afraid that once we go back, everything is going to go bad again. So while the COVID did give us a beautiful opportunity to deliver our messages, because we saw with our own eyes and we heard with our own ears the chirping of the birds and everything. So it presents us a golden opportunity to show, when we give respite to nature, it has the capacity to regenerate. So when we do that, it's good to say that, but we also have to be very careful. We have to connect all parameters in schools. When we go back to schools, whether you are an environment educator or any educator, I think we need to we've been saying what is sustainability, the social, the economic, and the environmental pillars. We've been talking about it, but we need to have programs that connects all these pillars. One thing we realized, that when it comes to public health, everybody acted immediately. Immediately there was a shutdown, immediately there was a close down, and nobody bothered whether the economy was going down. But otherwise, when we used to go for environmental protection and this program and that program and funding and support, they used to say, oh yeah, fine, we need to think, can we go for stuff, you know, can we go for development? I mean, it was very slow. The responses were very slow. But once this thing happened, all the money, everybody immediately acted. Nobody bothered whether the economy was going down. The lockdown was announced immediately. So that gives us a message as well. That is, if we as environment educators are going to weave in the social parameters and the public health parameters as well, we're definitely likely to get more traction from everyone. And besides, we've been saying these 3 pillars, but we very rarely connected any program with all the 3 pillars. And so I feel that has to be kept in mind. The one thing that we are doing at UNEP now is that when the COVID-19 happened, as Mr. Bhooj was telling you, I came into UNEP to sort of supervise this Tighturner Plastic Challenge. And I'm sure Karthik Bhai must have spoken about this project yesterday. And also my boss, Mr. Atul Bagai, would have also spoken about the Tighturner Plastic Challenge. This was a challenge that we started last year. And we had a pilot phase. We had 50,000 people participating in it. Wonderful, wonderful initiative. Youth became so excited. And this year we thought we'll reach out to 400,000 students. And what happened? COVID happened. And then we suddenly had to change the way we ran our Tighturner Plastic Challenge. The whole challenge had 3 levels, level 1, level 2, level 3. Level 2 and level 3 were on-ground activities where you would actually go and make a change, collect plastics, do a cleanup, do many things where you had to do an on-ground activity. Now, because of COVID, we couldn't do the on-ground activity. So we've had to really adapt ourselves and make everything online. So the whole project became online, and we were wondering that we might not actually anybody to register. We would not go having 85,000 people in already, and more are coming, and we're going to shut down, close the program, start doing our evaluation of the program, but we are getting numbers 2,000, 3,000 every day. So what does that tell me? As an environment educator, I wanted more ground action, but it seems the students actually liked more of these online interactions. So that was one program that I'd like to share with. And the program that we launched today, which is the Earth School program, which actually started on the Earth Day, and it was supposed to complete on the World Environment Day, but we have decided at UNEP, this is a program done by UNEP and TED-Ed. Now, the Ministry of HRD, they realize the program it's a fabulous program, the Earth School Adventure. It's again all online. We realize that the children can't go down, and this is a biodiversity year. A fabulous year to actually take out the children to the parks and etc. and talk about the birds and the bees, because this is a biodiversity awareness theme that is going on. But the kids could not go out. So we designed this Earth School concept. About over 70 people from all over the world, 70 environment education specialists from all over the world shared their resources. It is one of the largest collaborative efforts ever and the largest online program ever that was developed for children who were locked down at home. The Earth School Adventure, they had to go through 6 quests over a period of 6 weeks. Every week you take up new quests. And it was designed in such a manner that the students loved it. And India is now the second largest number after USA in terms of user of this particular program. And now the Ministry of Human Resource, as well as the Ministry of Environment, they have taken it up, and they want to take the Earth School to kids because it's a real fabulous way of learning. So this is about that online learning that we had to adapt because we had the COVID-19 coming up. We said, hey, what to do on the World Environment Day, what to do on the Earth Day, how do we adapt ourselves to the Tighturner Plastic Challenge? Do we dump the program? Do we go ahead with the program? When we adapted it, the students loved it. They all came on board. But I'm very happy, but there is a thought that comes to my mind. Had it been on ground, even now in India, We don't have that kind of network connectivity in all the areas. So what about those areas where students might not have such a good network? You needed to have smartphones as well. But so sometimes I wonder, is online learning and e-learning, is it making a divide between the ones who have the ability to access this and the ones who don't have the ability to access this? Are we creating another kind of an exclusion here? That is one thought that came to my mind, because it's an interesting program, but unfortunately, because of the connectivity issue, many people couldn't even, access it. Lastly, what is a way forward? We keep saying sustainability education is definitely multi-sourced. One thing we learned, now kids sitting in their homes had to learn about not to waste, water, everything came in. So we all learned from our home, and it became totally a real life context, because you couldn't go out, wash your hands, do this, don't waste, I can't go and get more vegetables, I can't do this, I can't do this. So you started looking at real life context. And when it comes to sustainability consumption, I think this was a real life lesson to all the children that actually happened. The parents became teachers, everybody became teachers. And online digital sources also came up in a big way. But as I said, we've got to balance. Once the COVID moves, we've got to learn to balance between the online and on-ground efforts. How can we make it more inclusive is my question that comes to my mind. So I think these are some of the thoughts. Please do pardon me from my side, real apologies, because as I said, since morning, I've been one after the other. So I haven't really been able to give express whatever I could have done. So pardon me, I hope I haven't taken too much time, and I hope I made some sense. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Gayatri. I think you addressed a lot of concerns that we discussed in 10 working groups. And Mr. Pandey, I think you missed that because you were late. Mr. Pandey tried to disseminate all those groups, collective compilation. He presented that, but you gave a quite a new insight, which is very, very interesting, particularly about the mainstreaming of sustainability education. The models that you mentioned about what constitutes good environment education program. In fact, yesterday, Dr. Pramod Sharma from APE, he gave some of the examples how they are addressing the post-COVID education into around 60,000 schools globally. I think one major issue that plagues with the school system is the health education. Of course, COVID has provided an opportunity to stress again. I think, Donna, you might remember earlier there was a school sanitation and health education program of UNICEF, SSHE, SHE program. In fact, me and Dr. Pramod Sharma, we did a pilot in India in one of the states, and that was very successful because if you start such programs from a school as an entry point, it becomes huge success. In fact, it was in eastern India's Vaishali district in Bihar, which got presidential award. This was the only program which got the one of the cleanliness award of the government of India. So of course there are examples and models. They need to be, I think, redesigned and made more adaptable to current situation. So thank you very much, Gayatri. And now I think let us open the floor for a few questions. We have around some 10-15 minutes, maybe 10 minutes. Bhavesh, you have the questions ready, or you are inviting the audience, viewers to raise hands and ask?
Sir,
I
we
can
have
see questions on the screen.
Yeah, you can pick those questions.
Anonymous attendee, he has asked the question. I think let us read only and ask the panelists, because to save the time rather than giving the floor to the viewers. Dear panelists, globally, why are the powerful and wealthy not highlighting the heat link of our Mother Earth that she has gone through during lockdown? Further, the physical healing of all organisms, including humans, is not being highlighted. And definitely, there is a huge cost saving on health for both exchequer and the people who have improved. Example, asthma, bronchitis patients. How do we envision this virus globally? Nothing to do with what we discussed, but can any panelists take up this question?
Sir, I suggest we take questions. We can just have the questions read first, and then people can choose probably. This would save time, as well as
Okay.
they can answer 2 questions or 3 questions simultaneously.
This second one is from Prafulla Dahal. Sustainability education is more practical in learning with nature than learning from nature. It's better to do and learn than only learn from texts. I think it's just a comment.
It's a suggestion, yeah.
Which SDG can be associated with animal welfare with. I believe sustainable education inadvertently includes animal welfare, be it in the biosphere reserves, domestic animals, or animals in agriculture. I would like to contribute in this domain but require direction, particularly reaching education institutions with welfare solutions. I can answer this because it's a SDG 14, the life on land, which deals with the animals as well, animal welfare, number one, and also in the SDG related to the sustainable agriculture, where the animal husbandry is one of the aspects. Regarding the like biosphere reserves, where in the biosphere reserve core areas you cannot have any of these activities, even it's strictly prohibited, but in and same is with the buffer zone, but in transition areas you can have animal welfare activities, domestic animals, all sustainable development activities related. I hope this answers. There is another question, the side effects of capitalism and consumerism and greed has damaged Mother Earth. How do we voice this to all Earthlings and request government to take consumerism as the impetus for growing economy? Any panelists can take this?
I would just like to say that from my perspective, I believe in children, and I think that's why we have the opportunity to reshape education, because the children and the young people are already on the streets fighting against the side effects of capitalism and consumerism. And I think for me, the job is to support them and help them to be able to change. I don't know about our generation and those before how much capitalism globally will change, but I think that this COVID-19 gives us a big chance to change the way we do things.
Another very interesting question, how can we maintain fitness out of door and prevent COVID-19 at the same time? Donna, again, I think you talked about the fitness.
Yeah, here in the US, people wear masks everywhere outside, but with 6 feet distance, the parks are open now, and as long as you're 6 feet away from one another, there are always people running on the beach and exercising outdoors. If there's enough space for social distancing, I think that's happening quite a lot, especially with the kids out of doors, if there's places for them to play with social distancing.
Next one is how can the school club activities be continued during the lockdown?
And probably I'll add to this, how can environment literacy be taught through digital space? Nandini is asking. And Rupali has also more or less the same question in terms of how to address the lack of access in remote areas. So maybe Mr. Pandey has some insights on this?
Yeah, Ms. Pandey or any panelists
Yeah,
who
any
can take up.
panelists?
I can speak to the school clubs, just that they are continuing. Actually, we're starting some new one. Even in places where they don't have access to internet, we're finding that they're able to use phones or connect in other ways.
Yeah, I also feel that the club activities can go on, because I think for us it's difficult to see. There is that one thing on touch and feel, and the other thing is, you know, because we can't do that right now because of lockdown, I think people are continuing. Teachers are continuing. Children are very, very happy with the social media, using those kinds of forums to connect, to spread the message. So I think that's happening.
Yeah, I think very rightly, Gayatri, a lot of schools, they are coming together. I remember one eco club in Delhi, particularly, they organized competitions, various competitions. Some 10 schools came together, and those were presented today in one of the functions. Uh, and the students were given e-certificates, and 5 of them were invited to speak also. So some of the eco club activities are happening, particularly in Delhi. Our good friend Dr. Sabat, he is very active in this, still very active in organizing such activities online. Another question is from Manisa Jetli Sharma. What is humane education and how to train teachers for the same? So a lot of such questions. I
Yeah.
think it's basically the value education she is talking, which is
Yes.
very much part of the sustainability, and how to train teachers. I think there are several institutions, and even the FE and Donna Goodman, you are working on this value-based or human education.
I
Currently,
am.
you
Yeah,
already mentioned in
there
your
are
speech.
schools all around the world that are doing this. It's really about encouraging the children to their uniqueness and supporting them to be like really good at who they are and to have respect for others and values and love. I've seen it happening in different ways, but essentially the teachers are trained to bring out the unique elements of the child, that each one of us is unique and has something that we're good at. And that's one of the things that I've seen in common in all the values-based education. And the more the children can love themselves and what they're here to do, the more they love the environment, and things are more in harmony.
Yeah, I think I can just now move to the last question because we are almost exceeding the time limit. Bhavesh, you have any burning question that you want to pose to panelists?
No. I think people have been encouraging out here, and they wanted this value-based education to be taken forward. So we'll reply to them individually as well as they wanted to. Maybe we can proceed with the main question, with the main.
There was last question, very interesting, about is there a way or some technique or technology that this online uh, teaching learning does not become addiction? Some addiction strategies.
Yeah. May I come in, Dr. Ram Bhooj here?
Yes.
I think with due respect, it is a little bit, presumptuous that it has become an addiction. But however, in the wake of that, we are expecting that we are moving to a hybrid kind of arrangement. But even within the online, I think my colleague, Dr. Dona, would agree that we can make a balance between a synchronous and asynchronous arrangement of teaching and learning, where the teachers and students are not all the time working in real time on a virtual platform. That is where the danger of addiction comes in. But if we bring in the asynchronous element of sharing the videos, the podcast, group projects, discussions, peer-initiated discussions, then probably that situation will not arise, in my opinion. I think this is my limited response to that question.
Okay, Dr. Huma Masood.
If I can come in here, one of you remember the Earth School that we were talking? It has both the elements. So when the student goes into the website, not only they get to see very, very exciting and the videos prepared by TED, but at the same time, they are encouraged to dig deeper where there are experiments and stuff like that they can do with their parents in their home or with the teachers or by themselves. So depending on their age, they can do some activity, learn. They can also go back and see the video. They can go and post something. So as you're rightly saying, we can have a mix and match. And that is one of the reasons why it became so exciting
Absolutely.
for students to do it. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
Dr.
you,
Huma Masood.
Yeah, now I quite appreciate the question, the last question which has been raised. And for UNESCO, we always encourage a blended learning format. And that is that you should combine online with your real practical activities also. But on the other hand, we must acknowledge that there's a major digital divide which has happened. There are children with disabilities. There are children who are in remote places, who are in rural areas, who cannot afford, digital literacy. So for some, it could lead to addiction, but for the others, they are hugely deprived of an opportunity like this. And therefore, I think it's important that we must bring in and inculcate the values of sharing. A lot of people have laptops and computers which they can share, but we are consumerist. We have the sense of greed in ourselves. I think that is what, when I was talking, I started with, that we have to give up on that. This is what is the learning of COVID-19, which we must inculcate in ourselves. And if we are not able to do that now, then, it cannot, we have not taken away any good lessons from this learning. And I think one thing which for the online education, for persons and children with disabilities, they are having a huge problem because we do not have sign language. We do not have, properly scanned documents for persons who are visually challenged. We are not preparing our formats for all, So what UNESCO has always been promoting is inclusive education, inclusive formats. And therefore, we must try to see that how we can bring in people who got displaced, how we can address education for rural transformation, what we call ERT, what we can do in those things and for those who have been deprived. For some, there is lots, but for some have been deprived in this situation. And that is why we will have a huge group which is going to be dropped out of the education. A very, very serious matter. And therefore, when we are concluding, I think we must take these lessons for ourselves and make education more sustainable, inclusive for all.
Okay, thank you, panelists. Thank you, Dr. Huma, Dr. Pandey, Gayatri, and Drona. Now I think it's time to move over to the chair of this whole event, Mr. Pradeep Burman. I think he has heard everyone, listened everyone very carefully, and now I request him to give his thoughts and insight into whatever he has last 2 days in his presidential remarks. Over to you, Mr. Berman.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Bhooj. Before starting, I would like once again to welcome everyone over here for this 2-day conference. It's been quite a learning experience for all of us to look at things in a very different way than we were used to looking at things. The first point I would like to make is that COVID-19 has shown us how the rivers are cleaner, how the air is cleaner, how the birds are singing. Let us not forget this lesson and let us not go back to the old stages. Whenever we talk about teaching, the teachers must be taught that you must mention what the COVID-19 accomplished as far as the rivers were concerned, as far as the air was concerned, as far as the animals were concerned, as far as the birds were concerned. This must be compared, and when we go back, this must be compared that, look, this is what is happening. It's the teachers that have to be trained how to compare this. That's the first point I would like to make on this. The other points which have been made by all that would really be, take me half an hour to really express all the points that will come out later. But some of the major points is that the digital divide will continue, and how we can bridge it. We should do, especially in India. It has got the major digital divide. Now, Doordarshan TV is everywhere. If you go to any slum, you will see there is always the TV over there. So part of it can be mitigated by doing things through Doordarshan and trying to prevent this divide from becoming too large. No doubt it will become large until everybody is literate. Everybody is not literate. We have a high illiteracy rate. So how do we look at the illiteracy over there and try and do? Everyone must go to school. That's more important than seeing anything else. Everyone must go to school, which is a big problem in India. India has got to have a hybrid type of education that has to be done. Then we have another question about inter-school competitions, about global citizenship, how we can have global citizens in each school, and the global citizenship interacts with the other global citizens to have learning and to spread the awareness of whatever sustainability is. It's very important to have. This point was made by Mr. Green from Whitgift, that they have a concept of global citizenship. Now, a global citizen is now elected or appointed, or in each school, in each class, there will be a global citizen who will actually propagate the views of sustainability to other global citizens, and that is how it will spread amongst all the schools and amongst all the children. That's a very important concept, which I think I could guess that this is done. The fact about COVID-19, we are looking at microbes are in trillions. We have to have natural immunity, which must be emphasized. Natural immunity doesn't mean that we don't keep on taking chemicals after chemicals after chemicals. We have to go out and meet the bacteria so that we develop the immunity. That is a very important point over here, which we have learned from COVID-19 that we have. The natural immunity is important, and counseling of health. Again, once again, the role of the teacher is there, that the natural immunity must be built up. Things like using turmeric, things like using ashwagandha, things like using amla. These are natural immunity builders that have to be emphasized, and the teachers are the ones that are going to emphasize it. Much of it comes from grandmothers. They already emphasize that this is the way to build the natural immunity. Respecting nature is another thing. Once again, I'm saying that the teachers have got to do their bit, and we have to train the teachers again and again and again to have them teach the children how to respect nature, how to respect life in general. And respecting life itself will mean that we will have respect for life, and biodiversity will come automatically once we respect life on this. There is one thing which is not mentioned at all anywhere, which is the cause of everything is the population explosion which has come about over the years. We have now heading towards 7 billion. This must be also taught to the teachers for making awareness about the population. Mobile population itself is already doing something on the population stabilization in 2 districts, which we will roll out into other districts, whichever the highest population growth is there. This is a long-term solution, but it must be emphasized, it must be said, it must be taught, and it must be sort of experienced. Another point which was made was that learning by itself is not just learning through distant learning or through the line learning. It has got to come through experiential learning, which was mentioned also by Seema Bali, how she's doing it through experiential learning, even though there is a standard operating procedure in each of the SDGs which she's teaching, in which part of it has to do with experiential learning. So these are some of the points made. But change we have to do, and we have to adapt to the change. And change comes not only amongst ourselves, but a lot of the change in the way that we teach things. We have to have change in the way that the teachers have to teach things after the COVID-19. These are only some of the points I could pick up that it could be done. Physical fitness, of course, was also mentioned by Donna over there. Not mentioned is jobs and how to create jobs, but also mentioned was jobs is the green jobs, and green jobs must be emphasized. That's how we have to do. We live in one world. Another thing that needs to be emphasized after the COVID-19, that we have to have one world, and how each and every action, what Newton has said, has an equal and opposite reaction. Now, one action here has an action throughout the world. That is something which must be taught to all the students, that whatever you do has an action with the rest of the world. And that is an important point to be done. I would also suggest something which is called planetary studies. It must come under planetary studies, that this is one planet. How do we do? We name it a separate subject. This is planetary studies. How the planet is being affected, and how we must protect the planet. When we name it planetary studies, we can all look at it at protection of the planet. These are some of the points. I'm sure I've missed a lot, which not able to mention in such a short period of time. But that is about all what we will come. Eventually, we will come out with something. It is. I would like to really congratulate both the organizing committee, where we have the climate reality, as well as the CEE, as well as we have the FEE, all taking part in this thing and helping us along with this, and helping the forum along, which has been a great spreading experience. Let's say all this will then spread once we make a summary of all the points that we have. So thank you all very much, and carry this with you as you go along, and we will be in touch again through another forum, which we will have another get together again. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Burman. I think you very eloquently, that's excellent summary that you provided. I think with your own insight into the sustainability education and this planetary studies that you very aptly mentioned about. I think this is the need of the hour today. Yeah, it was the first forum, ICSE forum, and we had 2 very fruitful days. And I think now is the time to propose a vote of thanks. And I invite my colleague, Mr. Aditya Pundir, Country Director, Climate Reality Project, to propose a vote of thanks. Aditya.
Thank you, Dr. Rambuj. It was a great session, great 2 days. It was great listening to ideas, and a lot of things were discussed. And I think a lot has been recorded. And I think the way Mr. Pradeep Burman summed up his vision, I think we are really thankful to him, because he has been the driving force actually for us to actually push more and more into sustainability education. Otherwise, Climate Reality is globally known as a climate change organization. But we have been trying to push more and more efforts into this, thanks to his vision and thanks to his help coming from him. So we are really thankful to you, sir, for your help as well as for your vision, which has been was able to form the ICSE. And now we are again very thankful to all the principals, because principals are extremely busy people in the education circuit. They are not only looking after the administration, they are looking after the school running, they are the CEOs, they have to look after the profitability also. So there's a huge amount of responsibility on all the principals. So finding out time for 2 days to be with us, discussing, giving ideas. So we are very thankful to all the principals and all the other educationists also who came, who are also with the principals, or you are working in other streams of education, and the experts as well who came, and all the panelists who came and who contributed to the ICSE forum. So I think it was a great, ideas have come through, a lot of, now we'll be going through them on this platform. So we're really thankful to everybody, especially as I said, all the principals, so to be on this platform. Then of course we had a fantastic team. There was a fantastic team. We had fantastic partners. Our partners have always been very, very reliable, and they have always come together since 2019 ICSE September. They came all together, and we were able to create a platform like this, which a lot of, I would say, even the UN organizations have not been able to create for sustainability education, which was created last year. And I think it's very important that now all the partners, they stick together and we take it forward and we make it in the future more and more vibrant. The platform has to be made more vibrant, and the platform has to be used for collating a lot of ideas. Because the way I look at the whole issue of we have been discussing is that we are all discussing a finite planet. We are discussing a very finite planet, whether it's land, it's oceans, it's water, or it's our air we breathe. It's a very finite planet. And then of course we have the challenges of COVID, will be followed by challenge of the recession, and then will be the challenge of climate change. So we have all these things happening. So it's really the need of the hour that there's some action takes place. So we need a platform to discuss those ideas. So the platform, I would say, is ICSE, where you can come, you can discuss these ideas. Probably twice a year we can meet, or once in a quarter probably we can meet, as Dr. Rambuj decides. So probably we can come and discuss these ideas, discuss the ways forward, take the best practices, and this platform can share it to everyone. Like, as I said, we have about 100+ principals, because we could not accommodate more than 120. So we limited it to 120 because more than 300-400 people had applied. So we will put all the information together and we'll be putting it in the public domain, where all the principals around the country or even globally can benefit from it. So lastly, coming to my team, the people who made it happen, we are really thankful to the team, because without their effort, this wouldn't have happened. As you know, it's very difficult to conduct these breakout rooms in the Zoom itself today. There are a lot of technical glitches. And the last night, all the team was awake because they had to turn it around in less than 24 hours. The 10 rooms had to be studied. They had to be documented. They had to be put in a form to be given to Mr. Ashok Pandey the next morning. Then he started working on it to be presented today. So I'm really thankful to this solid team which we have in Climate Reality and the Movies Foundation, who really went for the whole thing. They spent the whole night waking up and working on the project and turning it around. So thank you, everyone. And thank you to all the listeners who have joined us on the Facebook. And we're really thankful. And I'm sure under the able guidance of Mr. Burman and Ms. Dr. Bhooj, we'll be able to take this dialogue further and in a continuous manner. Thank you very much.